So it's Friday, February 6th, 2026.
Mm-hmm.
And the dust is, well, it's finally settling.
Mm-hmm.
We've just come out of one of the most chaotic earnings weeks in, I think, recent memory. The big three, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, have all dropped their reports for the last quarter of 2025.
Yeah.
And if you've been scrolling the news this morning, you're seeing the usual headlines, right? Revenue's up, stocks are doing their little dance.
It's a sea of green arrows, sure. But honestly, if you're looking at the profit margins, how much cash they actually kept, you're looking at the wrong number. You're looking at history.
Which is exactly why we're flipping the script for this deep dive. We are not going to talk about what they made.
Nope.
We are going to talk about what they spent. Because the burn rate right now, it is absolutely eye-watering.
Eye-watering is putting it mildly. We're talking about capital expenditure Capex numbers that, they rival the GDP of some mid-sized countries. But the story here isn't just that they're spending money, it's what they're buying.
Yeah.
And based on the reporting we're digging into today, specifically a really great breakdown from CIO by Anirban Ghoshal, these spending numbers are, well, they're effectively a crystal ball.
I love that image. A crystal ball made of billions and billions of dollars.
It really is. Because these numbers tell us exactly where the tech world is heading. And the headline here, if we had to write one, is that we're crossing a massive threshold. We're moving from an era of elastic abundance to an era of managed scarcity.
Hang on. Managed scarcity. That phrase, it immediately sets off alarm bells for me. For the last 15 years, the entire sales pitch of the cloud has been the exact opposite. It was supposed to be infinite. You need a server, click a button, need storage, here's a terabyte. It was magic.
It was invisible.
Exactly. Are you telling me that whole narrative is just dead?
It's not just dead. It's being buried under concrete and silicon.
Right.
See, in the Web 2.0 era, the era of apps and streaming adding capacity was, relatively cheap.
Yeah.
You threw some standard servers in a rack, plugged in the fiber, and you were good to go. But the AI era, this is a heavy industry. We're not just limited by code anymore. We are limited by physics. Physics. Electricity, heat, space. AI training clusters need these specialized processors that run hotter than the surface of the sun, figuratively speaking, of course, and they need cooling systems that consume lakes of water.
Wow.
So when we look at these earnings reports, we aren't seeing software companies anymore. We're seeing industrial manufacturing giants just scrambling for resources.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea of scarcity. Because the source material, it references some fascinating insights from analysts at Greyhound Research, Avasant, and Parikh Consulting.
Yeah, some really sharp takes.
And one concept that really stuck with me came from Sanchit Virgogia at Greyhound. He calls Capex a map of future bottlenecks.
That is such a brilliant way to frame it. Think about it. Amazon isn't spending billions of dollars digging trenches for power lines because they want to get into the utility business.
No, of course not.
They hate the utility business. It's regulated and slow. They're doing it because they've run the math and they realize the public grid is going to fail them.
So they're building their own lifeboat because they know the ship might go down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Guja points out that if a hyperscaler, one of these big cloud giants, starts buying land in a secondary metro, outside of the main hubs like Ashburn, Virginia, or Dublin.
Right, because usually you want to be right in the hub where all the fiber is.
Correct. But if they move to the edge, they're signaling something.
Yeah.
They're signaling that the main hubs are full, tapped out on power, so they're moving to the next tier down.
And they're telling you, the observer.
They're telling you, hey, regulatory friction is coming here, or power shortages are coming there.
It's like watching a seismograph. The money moves before the earthquake hits.
And the earthquake, in this case, is you trying to spin up a GPU instance to train your new model.
Yeah.
And getting a capacity unavailable error.
That is a terrifying thought for any CTO listening right now. Okay, so we've established scarcity as the new baseline. But what I found really fascinating in the CIO report is that even though Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are all facing the same problem, this physics problem, they're betting on totally different solutions.
Oh, yeah, they're playing 3 completely different strategy games.
And understanding those is the key, I guess.
It's the key to surviving this new era.
So let's start with the biggest spender. Amazon Web Services, AWS.
The 800-pound gorilla.
Their CEO, Andy Jassy, is talking about a $200 billion spend for 2026. $200 billion. I can't even conceptualize that much money. What on earth are they buying?
Well, obviously chips. Tons of NVIDIA GPUs, but also pouring money into their own custom silicon Trainium and Inferentia.
Sure.
But the detail in Ghoshal's reporting that made me just stop and reread the sentence was low-orbit
Yeah.
satellites.
Yes, I saw that. Satellites as data centers. Now, be honest, is that practical? Or is that just Jeff Bezos dreaming about space again?
No, this is deadly serious. This is what we're calling the utility play. Think about AWS's strategy here. They want to be the substrate of the entire planet.
The substrate.
Yeah, if you're running an automated oil rig in the North Sea, or a mining operation in the Australian outback, or even a military application in a desert, you need AI inference right now. You can't wait for a signal to bounce back to a server farm in Virginia.
So they're putting the compute in the sky to just crush the latency.
Precisely. They are turning the cloud into a true global utility, like the sun. It shines everywhere. Goggia calls this institutionalizing demand. They're securing land, water, power, and now orbital space so that they become the only viable option for that kind of global-scale infrastructure.
It sounds like a monopoly on physics.
It's a volume play. They're building the interstate highway system while everyone else is just building cars. They want to own the road.
Okay, so AWS is the utility. Now, let's look at Google. Their CFO, and Ashkenazi, committed around $180 billion, so a little less than Amazon, but still a mountain of cash.
Still a huge number.
But their shopping list looks different.
Very different. This is what I'd call the specialist play.
How so?
Well, a huge chunk of Google's spend is going toward refreshing their fleet. But they aren't just adding more generic servers. They are doubling down on their custom TPUs tensor processing units. These are chips designed from the ground up specifically for Google's style of AI.
And their report mentioned renewable energy a lot, too. Now, play devil's advocate for me. Is that just green Google PR, or is there a real business reason for that spend?
Oh, it's absolutely a business strategy.
Yeah.
Think about who Google's premium customers are. We're talking massive European banks, healthcare giants, governments.
Entities with a lot of rules.
Yeah.
A lot of regulations.
Exactly. These organizations have strict ESG carbon targets, incredibly complex data sovereignty laws. They can't just run their AI anywhere.
Right.
So Google's positioning itself as the boutique option. They're saying, we have the most efficient chips, the greenest power, and the most secure sovereign cloud zones.
So if AWS is Home Depot, you go there for everything. Bulk scale Google is more like a high-end custom laboratory.
Exactly right. They are betting on these performance-sensitive workloads. They don't need to catch every fish in the ocean. They just want the prize tuna, the high-margin, complex jobs.
Which brings us to player 3, Microsoft. Now, this one was a little confusing because their fiscal year is different.
Yeah, July to June.
But the estimates for their full year spend are around $100 billion. And their CFO, Amy Hood, even used the word moderate.
Moderate? When $100 billion is moderate, you know the industry has gone a little crazy.
Right. But compared to Amazon's $200 billion, it feels almost conservative. Are they falling behind?
Not at all. In fact, their strategy might be the most insidious, and I mean that in a brilliant business kind of way. This is the embedded play.
Bring that down for me.
Okay, think about how you use a computer. You use Word, use Excel, you code in GitHub, you chat in Teams.
The whole Microsoft suite.
Microsoft owns the interface. They don't need to sell you infrastructure because they're selling you the workflow.
The Copilot strategy.
It's exactly that.
Yeah.
When you click summarize this meeting in Teams, or you ask GitHub Copilot to write a function for you, you are triggering a massive amount of cloud compute in the background. But you, the user, you never made a conscious decision to buy cloud.
No.
You just bought a license for software.
It's invisible consumption.
Goggia calls it embedded cloud consumption. It removes the friction of choice. You don't shop around for a better cloud provider for your email summary because the summary feature is built into the email client.
That is actually kind of genius.
Okay.
And dangerous for the competition.
Extremely. They don't need to spend $200 billion on satellites to reach you because they're already on your screen. They have the ultimate distribution channel, the start button.
So, just to recap these 3 bets, AWS is the utility buying the physical world to guarantee capacity. Google is the specialist building the most efficient, compliant tech for high-end users. And Microsoft is the embedded player weaving the cloud into the software we already use every day.
That's the landscape of the spend. But now, we have to talk about the trap.
The revenue trap. Because the CIO article mentions that while revenue is up across the board, that might actually be bad news for the customer, which feels counterintuitive. If they're making money, aren't they healthy? Isn't that good for me?
Healthy for them, potentially very expensive for you. Gaurav Dhawan from Avasant points out that this revenue growth is largely driven by locked-in usage.
Locked in. Oof. That is the dirty word of cloud computing. We spent the last decade hearing about multi-cloud, right? The idea that we'd use containers and Kubernetes, and if AWS got too expensive, we'd just migrate our app to Azure over the weekend.
Build once, run anywhere. That was the dream.
Yeah.
But AI is killing that dream. It comes down to the hardware. Remember those custom chips we talked about? Google's TPUs, Amazon's Trainium. To get the best performance, you have to compile your code specifically for those chips. You're optimizing your software for their silicon.
So if I build my AI model on Google's TPU architecture,
You can't just drag and drop it onto an NVIDIA chip at Microsoft. It literally won't work without a massive rewrite. The hardware itself has become the lock-in mechanism.
so the walls of the walled garden just got 10 feet higher.
And thicker. And this gives the vendors massive leverage. Parik Jain from Parik Consulting warns about what he calls aggressive monetization,
Which is a polite business way of saying price gouging.
or at least the end of discounts. Do you remember when cloud prices used to go down? Every year, Amazon would announce price cuts. It was Moore's Law in action.
I do. It was great.
Those days are likely over. Jain suggests we shouldn't expect price drops anymore. Instead, expect upselling. Since you can't leave, they'll bundle things. Oh, you want that compute? Well, you also need our data platform and our security suite and our AI agents.
They're going to squeeze the lemon.
They are going to maximize revenue per user because that user has nowhere else to go. And the revenue numbers back this up. Look at AWS. They brought in $35.6 billion in Q4 alone. But the fascinating part is that a huge chunk of that was advanced commitments.
Wait, explain that.
It means companies are signing contracts to pay for capacity that they haven't even used yet. They're pre-booking space on chips like Trainium 2 and services like Bedrock.
That goes right back to the scarcity anxiety. It's like prepaying for a hotel room a year in advance because you know the Super Bowl is coming to town.
Exactly. It's a reservation system now. If you don't commit, you don't get the compute. Now, contrast that with Microsoft's $32.9 billion that's driven by that invisible embedded usage we talked about.
Right. It's hard to cut costs when the cost is hidden inside a software license that runs your entire company.
Precisely. You can't just tell the sales team, hey, stop using the CRM. And Google's $17.7 billion is driven by those super AI-intensive workloads. The people paying Google are locked in by the sheer complexity of what they're doing.
So this paints a pretty intense picture. I want to pivot to the listener now. Imagine you're a developer, a CIO, maybe just an investor in tech. You hear all this $200 billion in spending, hardware lock-in, rising prices. Why does this matter to you today?
I think there are 3 specific takeaways that everyone needs to internalize.
Okay, hit me with number 1.
Number 1 is the loss of flexibility. You need to accept that the agnostic cloud is dead. If you are building for AI, you are getting married to your provider. The divorce costs will be astronomical.
So the days of dating around are over. You have to pick a horse and ride it.
You do. And that means your due diligence at the beginning of a project is more critical than ever before. You aren't just choosing a vendor, you're choosing a hardware architecture for the next 5 years.
Okay, what's number 2?
Number 2 is predicting bottlenecks. You can actually use this Capex data as market intelligence for yourself.
Give me an example.
If you see AWS building massive power infrastructure in a specific region, that's a green light. It means they're securing the grid for you. But if you see them pulling back, or if you see a region where nobody's building...
It means the grid is tapped out.
Exactly. If you put your data center there, you're going to face outages. Follow the construction crews to find the reliable zones.
Smart. Use their billions of dollars of research for your own benefit. And number 3.
Number 3 is the cost structure. The pay-as-you-go model is being replaced by the pay-to-reserve model.
And that's a huge cultural shift. The whole ethos of startups for the last decade was launch cheap, put it on a credit card.
You can still do that for basic stuff, but if you want high-performance AI inference, if you want the good chips, you're going to be in the slow lane unless you sign a contract. The best resources are being ring-fenced for the customers with the biggest commitments.
It sounds like the Wild West days of the cloud are over. We're entering the era of the industrial cloud.
That is the perfect way to put it. It's not a frontier anymore. It's a factory. And factories operate on contracts and supply chains, not on whims.
It's heavy industry. Steel, concrete, silicon, and satellites.
And that leads me to one final thought, something I really want the listener to just sit with for a minute.
Let's hear it.
We have spent the last 30 years operating under this assumption that the digital world is infinite, that we can just write more code, create more data, and the world will magically expand to hold it. We thought the cloud was ethereal.
Right. It's in the name. Cloud, fluffy, light, endless.
But looking at these earnings reports, looking at the hundreds of billions being spent on water rights, on securing megawatts of power, on land, we are hitting a wall.
The physical ceiling.
We are approaching a point where the digital economy is no longer limited by how smart our code is, but by the physical capacity of the Earth to cool the servers.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
It is. What happens when a data center needs more water than the city next to it? What happens when an AI model needs more power than the local grid can federatively transmit? We used to worry about bandwidth. Now we have to worry about whether the lights stay on.
The cloud isn't floating anymore. It's grounded, and it's incredibly heavy.
But expensive.
And very expensive. On that slightly terrifying but necessary note, thank you for breaking this down. It's a brave new world out there. A world of copper, concrete, and contracts.
So next time you see those earnings headlines, ignore the profit.
Look at the spend. Follow the Capex.
Follow the Capex.
That's the deep dive for today. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.